And we're live, week 6. Looking at some FanDuel and DraftKings value picks. Going to do it a little bit different this week around the games and kind of give you guys quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, tight ends, whatever we can find for value. We'll provide it to you guys. We've got Johnny and Alex this week. Johnny, thank you for blessing us with your presence. We appreciate it, taking time away from your family to give us your knowledge. So let's dive right in, and I'm going to put you right on the spot, Johnny. We've got the Cardinals against the Redskins this week. We identified Carson Palmer, Andre Ellington, and Michael Floyd as potential value picks this week. I mean, going up against that Skins defense, none of them really seem to be, the Skins defense isn't really all that it's cracked up to be, especially with D'Angelo Hall now out for the rest of the season. You've got Carson, if he plays, 6,800 on DraftKings, 6,900 on FanDuel. Ellington, 5,100 on DraftKings, 7,200 on FanDuel. And Floyd, 5,400 and 6,300 respectively. So Johnny, talk to me. What do you like about those guys in particular? You think that Carson, if he plays, do you think Carson can just magically be back to normal?
I can. I'm all in on Carson Palmer, assuming he is a full go. He didn't practice last week, obviously, with the right shoulder, but I thought 20 throws the Sunday before the game, so I think his progress is there. How do you not give a guy like this, 6,900 on FanDuel, a shot? I think on DraftKings, what is he, 68? So to me, this is your guy. And yes, to answer the second question, Michael Floyd finally just absolutely goes off here. So we've been waiting for that, and I think you pair the two up, that would be an awesome idea. And go for it if he plays.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. Go ahead, Mark.
No, I'm good. Go ahead.
All right, so I just want to add, here's the thing. If Palmer isn't playing, do not touch Michael Floyd. We've seen it. Even I had hopes that when Drew Stanton finally got into the groove that he was going to start hitting Michael Floyd and he was going to be okay again while we were waiting for Palmer, but then he went out with the concussion, and then Logan Thomas can't hit Michael Floyd. That's just not going to happen. You need Palmer to be in the lineup for Michael Floyd to be successful. That is hands down, no questions asked. At this point, Michael Floyd is he's a borderline wide receiver 3 with a really low floor unless Carson Palmer's in the lineup. That said, if Carson Palmer's in the lineup, you know he's going deep and you know who his favorite target is, and that's Michael Floyd. On the other end of the spectrum, though, Ellington, I think Ellington's value gets a little bit of a bump if Palmer isn't playing, because they're going to need to run the ball more, and obviously Logan Thomas isn't as good of a passer. So they're going to rely on Ellington. And as we saw, he looked as healthy as he's looked all season, and he really gashed that Broncos defense. I know his points came on that one big play, but he still had a pretty good game, not including that big play. Other than that big play, still would have had, I would say, almost 20 points other than that play. Other than that big play, still would have had 20 points. And it's a good play for him. He looks healthy.
You all done?
Yeah,
Sorry,
I'm all done. Yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah, no, I mean, he definitely tore it up, running and receiving, right? And with Dwyer getting that, I think we mentioned this last week or the week before, with Dwyer getting that case and getting suspended, I mean, Ellington is basically their every down back now, right? He doesn't have any real competition. If you call Steven Taylor competition, that's kind of iffy, but I think they're going to feed Ellington when they can, and that even means, dump passes out of the backfield, screen passes, stuff like that. So his value increases, I think, if Palmer doesn't play, whereas Floyd's increases only if Palmer does play. So just keeping an eye out for those ones there.
So Ellington is a guy that I would definitely recommend. I'm probably going to have him in my lineup. I'm just saying that, but we'll get to that on Thursday.
That's true. So we'll move on from this game. The next, just going to touch on briefly, they're all studs normally, right? Big names, Roddy White, Alshon Jeffrey, and Brandon Marshall. Bears at the Falcons this week, so they're in Atlanta, in the Dome. Atlanta's defense is pretty terrible against the pass. We've seen it time and time again. They get beat. I think they overachieved against the Giants this week. They put their starting safety on IR last week. Their DBs have been okay. So I really think that Chicago, Alshon and Brandon Marshall can take off. Roddy White going against them, it's the same thing. The Bears secondary has been terrible. I'll give you their prices real quick. In DraftKings, Roddy White's only $4,800, $7,200 on FanDuel. Alshon and Brandon Marshall are $6,500 and $6,300 in DraftKings respectively, $7,700 and $7,900 in FanDuel. So the value's there in DraftKings, especially with Roddy White. I don't really want to spend all that much more time on them since these are guys who they get in the end zone, they get you catches, they get you those receptions, and the PPR. We'll move on and tell you guys something you don't know. So let's move on to unless, sorry, Johnny and Alex, you guys have anything else that I didn't add on those guys?
I'm going to wait my piece on Brandon Marshall for Thursday.
Sounds good. Next receiver then is Marvin Jones. Hopefully, if he plays right, hopefully coming back from that injury this week. Bengals against Carolina matchup. He's going for bare bones $3,000 on DraftKings, $4,700 on FanDuel. Alex, you think that he can come back and in his first week back really make a difference?
I think he can. I just don't know if he will or not, and that's something that I don't really want to take a risk on, especially in a 50-50. In a tournament play, that's a great call because later in the year we're going to see him priced in the $4,000 to $6,000 range weekly. I want to see how healthy that foot is, and there's no guarantee that he's going to be back and healthy and playing this week because we thought that last week and then he was doubtful and he didn't play. So until I see him on the field and I see him getting targets, I don't really feel comfortable playing with him. That said, though, in a tournament play, if you believe what he did last year was real, other than that 4-touchdown game against guess who, my defense, if you believe in Marvin Jones, he's a good threat to get in there in the end zone because Dalton likes targeting him there. If AJ Green's double covered, he doesn't really rely on Gresham. That's kind of like that wide receiver 2 role really gets those looks in the end zone. So he's a good bet to get, I would say, a 5-catch, 80 yards and a touchdown type of game. But against Carolina's defense and not knowing how that foot is, it's just something that I personally wouldn't risk.
So I think really quickly, I think he's a good contrarian play this week, right? And that's something that we haven't really touched on much, but we probably will a bit more going forward. In that you've also, especially in tournament play, you've got to look sometimes for the player that not a lot of other people are playing, right? So, for example, 2 weeks ago, Jamal Charles was being played in, I think, 1 or 2% of leagues. So a buddy of mine had a good week. He had Jamal Charles going Monday night. Jamal Charles goes off, and my buddy literally jumps 12,000 spots in the rankings, due to one player. I mean, you've got to take that into account. And I think Jones this week, if he plays, is going to be one of those guys that everybody kind of shies away from. He's not the sexy pick, but at that bare minimum price that we look at, you've got to at least consider playing him, especially, and we mentioned this last week, you have multiple entries. If you have multiple entries in your tournaments, he should be on at least one of those ballots, right? If he plays and he's deemed healthy and, news comes out, he's going to get a full workload, put him on at least one of those lineups, in my opinion. We'll move on, though. Jordan Cameron, tight end, Cleveland, going up against Pittsburgh. He is $3,600 on DraftKings, $5,800 on FanDuel. Johnny, tell me, you think Jordan Cameron can come back? Can he be the Jordan Cameron we all expected him to be at the beginning of the year?
Well, he's coming back pretty much as healthy as he will ever be, I think, the rest of the season. So, they have to pass, right? The Browns have got to pass. The numbers, I'm just not sure where he's going to be, but it sounds like he wants to be that number one tight end. I think. What is he going for? Tell me again. On DraftKings, he's 3,600, and on FanDuel, it's 58. I think if you're gonna insert him this week, he's playing. He's at home, so Pittsburgh's been yielding some yards to tight ends. I think use caution, but hey, he's as healthy will be. So if you want for the money, I think it's a good play.
Yeah, he was one of the. Sorry, not he. The Steelers' defense was one of the reasons why I really liked Clay Harbor last week, and he ended up biting me in the ass. But we already talked about that. I said my piece on that. But yes, I agree with you there. I like the play. Hoyer actually played really, really well in the second half of that game last week. So I could see and this is a rematch game if I'm not mistaken, right? Didn't Cleveland and Pittsburgh played week 1 of the season?
Mm-hmm.
So if Hoyer had a decent game then, if he's already seen them, hopefully he can have another decent game going forward this week. So high hopes for Jordan Cameron this week. Moving on though, we're gonna look at the Broncos. Ronnie Hillman's the running back for them now with Monty Ball out. Oh, Monty freaking Ball. There's my wasted 12th overall pick. Thank you very much. 3,000 in DraftKings, 5,900 in FanDuel. See, that's why I love daily fantasy so much, because there's no huffing and puffing over draft picks, right? But Anyway, I keep getting my frustrations out there. Alex, at that price, he's again bare minimums on DraftKings, 5,900 on FanDuel, so they seem to respect him a little bit more. I mean, he's going to get the full workload there, right? Again, we'll throw it to you because it is against your Jets defense. What do you think about playing him this week?
I'll probably touch on this a lot more on Thursday, but as of right now, he's in my lineup because A, he's gonna wind up with the starting job, and 2, he's nothing. He's a punt play. He's 3,000, and you know the guy is gonna get touches, and that's one of the things that I like to look for, especially in a 50-50 play, is who do I know is gonna get touches that still doesn't cost me a lot and lets me save on players that I want to play later. Like if I want to stock up on wide receivers, because I think this week we see a lot of value with wide receiver and some big matchups like passing yards in them. So the way we looked against Brandon Oliver, can someone tell me who Brandon Oliver was before this week? I didn't think so. So for him to gash our defense and us going up against, I don't think that we're going to really stack the box, and that's going to give space for Hillman to run around and get some points. Plus, he's going to catch the ball out of the backfield. That's free points in DraftKings and FanDuel. You always look for those free points. It's just that we're going to have to focus so much on stopping the pass because of how much our secondary is struggling that there's just going to be a lot of open lanes for Hillman. And I can see him at least once a quarter breaking off a 15-yard run against our defense, because the one thing about our defense is, although it's stout, we are also prone to somebody gets past that linebacker, they're going to bite off a big chunk of yards. They're not necessarily going to take it to the house, but they're going to bite off big chunks of yards, and then we're going to stop them a lot. But at the same time, if every fifth carry goes for 15 to 20 yards and then the rest only go for 5, that's still 5 carries for 25 yards.
Absolutely. I like your take. Johnny, you had something else?
Yeah, I mean, what I was going to say real quick is for those of you like me that were told, hey, don't drop the ball on Monty Ball this year, make sure you draft him, you're all disappointed at this point. But, yeah, in the deal here, what I wanted to point out is a little bit different than what Alex is talking about. Hillman has let us down in the past in so many similar situations. And, yes, I understand there's a prevent defense or nickel type of defense that the Jets will have to play, and they will have to play it a lot. And so it's easy to say, yeah, there's going to be a lot of 7 to 8, maybe 9-yard gashes for Hillman, but let's not forget he's going to be also sharing some time. The backfield is unpredictable at this time. I'm just not that high on him this week, and I know the Jets are known for their run defense. Right away, there's just too many roadblocks for me to pull the trigger on that price when there's other guys out there for that price I think is a better insert, and that's just my opinion.
I hope you're right, but the way my team has been, my defense has looked this year, I'm sorry, I just feel like at this point I have to play someone against my defense to either make me feel better and they do really bad and my team wins, or they do great and I win money. So I don't know, man. That's why I like Hillman.
Here's the thing, Alex. Sorry to chime in, Mark, but the thing is we know one thing about Ronnie Hillman with Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning has got to have someone that picks up the blitz, and Hillman just isn't that guy. We know C.J. Anderson is, for sure, but Hillman, I don't know. So there's a lot to Manning because Manning does not want to be sacked, and so I'm just thinking in a daily type of league, there's just a lot going on with that unpredictable backfield. We haven't seen it without Monty Ball yet, so that's why I'm just shying away. But I do understand it's your team. You know the Jets very well, but that's why I'm just saying use caution, even with that point being so attractive.
Yeah, obviously it's something that you want to look at going forward to see if John Fox really gives us anything as to who's going to be the guy that's going to get a lot of the touches or who's going to be that. I think the most important, the best player to play from the Denver backfield is going to be the guy that we know is going to get on third downs because of those check down passes from Peyton Manning, and those are free points through the air as opposed to hoping that one of them gets hot and runs a lot. I'd rather have that floor from the guy than be catching the passes more so than anything than predicting who's going to have the hot hand running the ball. It's a tough play, but if he's gonna start at 3,000, that's one of those things that you really have to consider.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna chime in right here before we move on. You make a good point, Johnny, in talking about the price point, right? So for DraftKings, he's essentially a punt play this week, right? He's your flex punt play this week, and who better to have than a starting running back who is going to get some catches out of the backfield? I mean, even like he said, they're going to spread out that secondary. If they go 4 wide, let's say, or 3 wide, and spread out the Jets secondary, set up a nice screen for Ronnie Hillman, I mean, he can take it to the house with the way that their secondary has been playing and the way that those guys block. I mean, at 3,000 in DraftKings, I think he's practically a must play. At 5,900 in FanDuel, I'm looking for some more value elsewhere, but man, I mean, at 3,000 in DraftKings, I don't know how you pass him up this week, but we'll get in more to on Thursday. We'll get more into who we're playing, and I think that's what Alex touched on at the very beginning of the Ronnie Hillman discussion. Let's skip off of Ronnie and move to Golden Tate. We saw him the past couple of weeks do really, really well. This past week was actually a surprise. I mean, he had Thursday? He got put on the injury report with a hamstring injury. Going up against Minnesota this week, 6,300 in DraftKings, 6,400 in FanDuel. So, Johnny, tell me, how do you like Golden Tate this week?
I think he's looking just every bit the part of a solid receiver, but not only that, right now with Calvin Johnson out, I mean, gosh, it's got to be a really hard thing if you're a Detroit fan because, hey, Calvin Johnson might miss some time, but now you're like, oh my gosh, if Golden Tate's not only on your fantasy team, but hey, in the daily leagues right now, he's got to be like a #1 must play. I mean, against the Vikings, I'm saying conservatively here, he's going to go for 85 yards and 7 receptions. So I like him a lot. I think the value's there. I'm glad he's on the list. 6,300 in DraftKings and right around 64, I believe, in FanDuel. I think he's a guy on your list right now. Struggling. Yeah, I just think Minnesota's going to punt the ball so much. Detroit's going to be airing it out.
I hope so. So you mentioned as a Lions fan it's got to suck, but I'll tell you as a Packers fan it's great. I hope CJ sits. I also don't own him in fantasy leagues, so again I hope he sits. But we'll see how that all works out. There's been mention of him sitting before, and he doesn't practice all week, but powers through it and has a big game. So who knows how that plays against Golden Tate. I think if you're thinking of playing Tate, you've really got to look at whether or not Johnson plays. And in my opinion, you can really take it either way, right? If Johnson doesn't play, Tate could get more targets. But if Johnson does play, Tate's going to get better targets. And by that I mean he's going to have one-on-one as opposed to being doubled perhaps. It's going to be easier for him to get open and convert those targets if Johnson plays. So if he doesn't play, I'm a little iffy. But, Tate did very well last week against a pretty good Buffalo defense. So, again, at that price point, pretty decent value for Golden Tate this week, especially, if he does become their number one with Johnson out. Number one receivers aren't typically in the 6,000s, but we'll move on to the Jaguars, who are a little bit of an enigma. We've got one of Alex's many man crushes in Blake Bortles. He's their quarterback. They're going up against Tennessee this week. We're going to talk about 6,400 on DraftKings and 6,400 on FanDuel, 5,700 on DraftKings. We've got Clay Harbor, 3,200 on DraftKings, 4,900 on FanDuel, and Allen Robinson, 3,700 and 5,400. Alex, I know you chose these. So why exactly you think anyone from the Jaguars deserves to be on my daily team?
Well, you guys know how I feel about Blake Bortles. I'm not going to keep telling you how much I like him. You guys just should know at this point that I like him. I think that it was just one of those games against the Steelers that both teams just kind of struggled to move the ball, and it was one of those, it was exactly what I thought the Browns and Titans game was going to be, where they just struggled, but somehow, some way, somebody scored a touchdown, and then they took the lead, and then that was it. It was one of those games. They both looked not so great, especially Roethlisberger. We expected going against the Jags defense. But I got to give a little bit of credit to the Steelers. The Steelers look good. They look ready for Bortles. They look like they weren't ready to just get beat up on them the way that Bortles threw the ball against the Colts. I like him this week just because the Titans just don't look very good, and especially if Locker is out this week, I just feel one of those games that, especially if it goes the same as last week, if Titans get off to a big lead, Bortles is going to throw the ball, but Bortles is going to have more success throwing the ball against the Titans. And without Cecil Shorts and Marquise Lee in the lineup, the two guys that are going to get the majority of the targets are Allen Robinson and Clay Harbor. And the reason that both of those guys struggled last week was because they really didn't get that much done through the air. Bortles struggled against that Steelers defense, but they were still the two most targeted receivers on the Jaguars. And as those attempts go up and those completions go up, these guys are going to be the ones that benefit from that.
Yeah, and I don't know.
It's a tough call. It's not something that I'm going to really, really recommend this week, but there's value there, especially because they struggled last week. So if they do have a big week, we could see their prices rise, but I don't think they're as bad as they were last week, and they're still going to provide value.
And it's something that, again, that I would recommend if you have multiple lineups, multiple entries that you're playing, you take advantage of these guys in at least one of those lineups, right? I don't recommend, if you're playing a 50-50, I don't recommend you play these guys because they do carry, a higher risk with them. But where you need to take that higher risk in order to get the higher return, maybe, again, that contrarian play, that's where you're looking at playing these guys in some sort of tournament play, looking to hit big, like 2 weeks ago again with Clay Harbor, right? I doubt anybody played him. Maybe less than 1% played him, and he went off 8 for 80. So maybe he does better this week. He probably will, since I won't play him. But we'll move on from the Jags. We're going to go to Jarius Wright, the Vikings wide receiver, going up against the Lions this week. He is 4,500 in FanDuel, 3,200 in DraftKings, so pretty much cheapest of the cheap again. We're recommending you only play him with Bridgewater playing. We saw with Christian Ponder that the Vikings offense was just awful, horrendous. Nobody on that team really gave you value with Christian Ponder in there. So if Bridgewater plays, Johnny, tell me, Jarius Wright, you think he's the play to have out of, at that price point? Can he continue to get those targets from Bridgewater?
Well, I guess it depends on what, Bridgewater and everything, but I'm a little worried about this one here. I'd like to hear what everybody else has to say about Jarius Wright, but I just think Detroit's defense is coming on here, and I know he's 3,200 in DraftKings as compared to the 45 in FanDuel. I'm just a little worried about Minnesota in general. Right now, they're stacking the box against Asata. I worry about them getting first downs, and without the first downs, I'm just really worried about Jarius Wright. Now, on the flip side, they're going to be down and score, and yeah, they're going to have to throw it and air it out. And with Teddy back in the reins, maybe things change. I'm just a little worried about it. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say, so I'm gonna kind of defer that one. It wouldn't be something I would play this week.
Let's give it over to Pete then.
Can't hear you, Pete.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you hear me now?
There he is.
There you go.
Right. Lions' vulnerability is the secondary. So if you're going to play a Viking this week, I think I'd prefer to play a receiver over an Asiata or a McKinnon, and I think the workload there is something that we're still not sure of either moving forwards. But I really would rather take a shot on somebody else, some other cheaper name than any Vikings receiver. Yes, one thing in his favor, if Bridgewater plays, Wright's one big game, he had 10 targets 2 weeks ago in Bridgewater's first start, and caught passes for over 100 yards. But on the other hand, look, this offense is just out of sync. It was a mess last week. I think that was probably the worst football game I've watched all year, was the Thursday nighter against Green Bay. It was a disaster. I don't want any part of it, especially the passing game.
It was awesome.
It's great if you're a Packers fan, right? Yeah, but at the moment, if I'm playing a daily fantasy lineup, there are a few offenses I want to avoid. I want to avoid the Jets. I want to avoid the Vikings. And I want to avoid Tennessee, who we're going to talk about coming up, I think. But I don't think I'm playing him. I have a hard time playing Wright, even if Bridgewater is in there. I don't think this is a pretty game. And frankly, look, if you're Minnesota, you've got to get Cordarrelle Patterson going. And you've got to find what you're going to have in McKinnon. So I may consider using one of those guys, of course, in DFS again because of the price. You probably won't. But Wright's not even on my radar, even as a cheap play.
I'm going to disagree with you there, Pete. I think that offense looked terrible because Bridgewater wasn't in the lineup. And that the one game that they looked like a real offense was the game that Bridgewater started and played and looked really good in against the Falcons. The big thing with Jarius Wright is even though we're waiting to see how his connection continues with Bridgewater, he's still, at the beginning of that game, before it got out of hand, he was the guy that they were throwing the ball to. I know Ponder didn't really look at Patterson. I know me and Mark talked about it on Thursday when Patterson ran across the middle on just a drag route, and he was wide open, and Ponder ran for, a yard and ran out of bounds. He's not looking at Greg Jennings. He was looking at Jarius Wright. And the way that Bridgewater and Jarius Wright's chemistry has developed from being on that second-team offense when Castle was the starter and Castle was working with Cordarrelle and Castle was working with Jennings, he has that chemistry that rookie quarterback to be successful, and he's the guy that he's going to target. And for him to be that cheap for a guy that could see 8+ targets and total a bunch of yards, it's a good play to have somebody like that in either a tournament or a 50-50 because he's going to see the targets if Bridgewater's in love with him. Plus, it's this week, I think Norv Turner was saying that Patterson's been having trouble getting open, so that's one weapon that Bridgewater hasn't really been able to utilize because he can't get open. And then that leaves, there's no Rudolph, so the tight end is really a non-factor, and Greg Jennings is Greg Jennings at this point. So, although Wright's upside isn't all that great, and I wouldn't recommend him really all that strongly, but for a guy that's going to get those targets and has shown chemistry with Bridgewater and Bridgewater's only first full game, he's somebody that you can take a chance on at that low of a price.
So let me just propose a board bet then. If you had to play, Pete, if you had to play one Vikings receiver, who would it be? Pete, you'll have to take yourself off mute.
Oh, what are the prices for Patterson and Jennings.
No, it doesn't matter. I apparently
one receiver play doesn't matter.
Yeah.
In every board bet, I apparently give up money.
If they're all the same price, I think I'd still play Patterson, assuming just in a vacuum. And I know that may be crazy to say, but I really like looking for upside. They've got to find a way to get him involved. Alex, every point you made was spot on. I can't argue with any of them. The only thing I'll say is this. His one great game was against Atlanta. Atlanta has a tendency of making everybody look like world beaters. I mean, making everybody look good. We really don't know yet what we're going to get out of Bridgewater for the rest of the year. Every point you made was spot on, but I'm a little wary. I think there's just a little too much risk. And to your point, Mark, I probably wouldn't play a Vikings receiver, and I think that's more where I'm going with this. Is it's not so much I think Wright is the wrong guy to play on that team, but I probably wouldn't use one at all in a daily lineup. But if you want to put a board bet, I'll take Patterson against Wright, sure.
Sure. I give up money every single time we do a board bet. I'm giving up money. Every time. I don't think I've had less than $1,000 difference below.
Stop loving punt plays, but
anyway.
I'll take McKinnon.
Board bets on that.
He said he'd take McKinnon.
But I like McKinnon.
All right, Johnny has something to say.
I'll take Asiata.
I'll take that. I'll take Wright against Asiata.
Okay, Wright against Asiata.
Let's do
FanDuel points for the week?
No, DraftKings. I'm getting my.
You're getting your full point PPR.
Full point.
Yeah.
McKinnon caught 4 passes last week, I think. Something like that.
All right, Johnny, you had something to chime in?
Oh, I was just going to totally agree with Pete, and I was going to say, Alex, back to our cyber bet with Kelsey and Donnell. I think I missed that last podcast after Donnell went Richter. So I would say, I'll take Patterson hands down. I mean, look, I don't even think Cordell Patterson's going to get more than 65 yards. Let's face it. So your boy Wright, I think he gets 39. I think Wright gets 3 catches and 39 yards. So mark that down. If you want to take that one, that's a cyber one through the airwaves.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I'm not necessarily saying that Jarius Wright is going to be in my lineups, but I like Jarius Wright the most of anybody in Minnesota because I know if Bridgewater's playing, he's going to get the looks.
By week 16, somebody's going to owe somebody a ton of pixelated beer. That's just all I'm saying.
All right, we'll get off of the Jarius Wright talk. Let's move on to who knows if there's any relation, but Tim Wright, tight end for the Pats, going up against Buffalo this week. He's 3,000 in FanDuel, 5,200 in 3,000 in DraftKings, 5,200 in FanDuel. He finally saw the field as a receiver. It was only his 19 plays, but he still found the end zone. He still got you, I think it was 4 catches for 45 yards. Alex, are you buying Tim Wright this week?
You said the exact reason why I'm not buying Tim Wright. He played 19 plays. I get it. He's that guy that they needed as in that Aaron Hernandez role since he, killed somebody. They've needed that, but they still aren't getting him on the field enough for him to really be effective and for him to be trustworthy, especially in a daily league. You don't know from week to week if he's going to see more than 20 snaps and if he's going to see more than 3 targets. Obviously, it worked out this week, but it hasn't worked out in any weeks past. They know what they have in Wright. They should be getting him more involved, but until I see him get consistent production, and all I want to see is 50% snap. If he can get the same amount of snaps as Kelsey, I don't think he has the same upside as Kelsey, but with Brady loving the tight ends, he's gonna get those targets, and he's going to be worth playing week to week.
So I think there's 2 things there. I think, one, it's not just that Brady loves the tight ends. He's only got tight ends, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Brandon LaFell is not a number 1 receiver. They gave him no number 1 receivers. His potentially, his only legitimate downfield threat was Kenbrell Tompkins, and they cut him. So
Oakland Raiders.
They had to do something, with Tim Wright. They had to start using him. This week was the week to do it because obviously it took Cincy by surprise. I think he's someone to look at. I think his price point is only going to go up in daily fantasy. I think this week he's probably going to be one of the top waiver wire pickups as well this week. I don't think he's going to put up that type of a stat line. I think, Pete, you corrected me, 5 for 85, not 4 for 45, so I apologize. but that's a hell of a stat line for 19 snaps on the field. I mean, obviously we'll see where it goes, but I think at 3,000 again, if you're looking for a punt play, he's not a bad look there in DraftKings.
He's a tourney play, not a 50-50 play.
Exactly. Yes. But we'll move on to someone I think actually who will be a safer 50-50 play. Andre Williams. He's going for 5,400 in DraftKings, 6,300 in FanDuel. We also want to touch on Larry Donnell going for 3,500 in DraftKings and 6,000 in FanDuel. But Pete, Andre Williams, he's not a one-for-one replacement for Rashad Jennings, right? He's not, he doesn't catch passes. We'll put it that way. But number one running back going up against Philly's defense. Can you say no to that?
Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, I'm happy I get to talk about Williams because I drafted him in a couple leagues where I don't own Jennings, perhaps foolishly, but I think I was waiting for the opportunity. He's gonna play. He's gonna play all the downs. And also the Giants. I just saw this stat today. The Giants are in the top 5 in run percentage, in situational run percentage in the league. They run the ball a lot. And Williams is going to get all of the carries. So I think Williams is a great play this week, and I actually think he will catch passes. Who are they going to put in there to catch passes? Peyton Hillis. If they need a check down, if they need somebody coming out of the backfield to catch passes, it's going to be Williams. He caught 2 passes last week, and that's playing not a full game. So, let's say we double that to 4. You got 4 catches, you got 30-some yards, you're getting all the carries against, oh, by the way, Philadelphia. Who can be had on the ground. I think Williams is a great play this week. I instantly inserted him. I was so happy when the lineups came off of lock Tuesday morning. I went and found him in every league I own him in and immediately put him in my starting lineup. I didn't care who was there. I think he's going to have a big week, and I'm looking forward to the next 4 weeks using him in regular fantasy too. I think this week in particular, you can still have him cheap. You said 6,300 FanDuel, is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, so you can still get him relatively cheap. He's going to get all the work, and he can score touchdowns. He's going to get the ball in close as well. He's had 2 touchdowns already with Jennings starting. So I like Williams a lot. I think we talked about, I can't remember who it was a couple weeks ago, but I think Williams is one of those must plays. You got to find a way to get him in the lineup.
So I like everything you said there. I think I agree, and we're going to move on to Johnny B's man crush and Donnell. So Johnny B, do you think he can improve on his 0-point performance from last week?
Yeah, I was a little bummed. I gotta admit, back to back, I thought, gosh, this guy's gonna just kill it. But basically, he got some attention from Atlanta, but I still think, with the Giants. There's a huge amount of targets, okay? So I still think Donnell is there. What I'm just trying to figure out here is as I look at his price for 3,500 in DraftKings, whereas look at FanDuel, he's at 6,000. So obviously, no on FanDuel, yes on DraftKings. But yeah, here's exactly what Pete's talking about. High amount of targets against Philadelphia. You have a nice runner in Andre Williams, who I think Coughlin really likes. And when Coughlin likes a running back, that usually gets first downs, and that usually opens it up for guys like the tight end and the other receivers. So, yeah, targets are going to be there. I think he's a great play in DraftKings.
Alex, you got anything on these 2 guys?
Yeah, I'll jump in on Donnell first, and then I'll get to Andre. With Donnell, the one thing that I noticed when looking up why he had that nice little goose egg last week, Atlanta really keyed on him, and you could see it if you watch the game. They made sure that he wasn't going to hurt them because of how well he did against the Redskins. And Eli saw that from the get-go, and he just decided to throw the ball to Cruz, throw the ball to Randall, throw the ball to Odell Beckham Jr., who's back. Another one of my – I love that kid. With that, it's going to open up that passing game now that Odell Beckham Jr. is in there, and – Donnell, they're not going to key on Donnell again. They're not going to be able to because now there are 3 legitimate wide receiver weapons that Eli Manning can throw the ball to. They're not going to be able to key on Donnell. So Donnell should go back to being not what he did with the 3-touchdown game against the Redskins, but back to like that 7 for 70 with a touchdown usually type of performance. That's a solid play in 50-50s. So moving on to Andre Williams. I don't really like Andre Williams just because on 20 carries he had 65 yards. I know he had the touchdown. I know he's probably going to get a couple targets, even though the man looks like he's scissoring trying to catch the ball. Like he doesn't know how to catch the ball, in my opinion, from the highlights I saw in college. It's one of those things where his price, especially on DraftKings, I would rather save $300 and play Andre Ellington against the Redskins than play a guy that hasn't shown the ability to run for more than 4 yards per carry when given a big workload. So that's one of those things where obviously I like Andre Williams. He's a good play in regular fantasy because you're not really worried about a cap or playing prices. But at that price for a guy that you don't really know exactly what you're going to have, even though you do know you're going to get the carries, it's just too much for a risk, in my opinion, because I'd rather play either Andre Ellington at 51 or if I'm going to go with somebody that we know is starting at a cheap price, Ronnie Hillman for 3,000. It's just it's that price and that unknown of what he gives you from week to week that keeps me from playing Andre Williams.
So just to touch on the Donnell thing you brought up, actually, Atlanta is like top 10 against the tight end position. So they're actually very, very good in terms of fantasy points against with that position. So you hit it right on the nose. I mean, they're very good against tight ends. They keyed on Donnell, especially because of what he did the past couple weeks, and it showed. And then, once the second half rolled around, Giants change up their offensive scheme a little bit, increase their tempo. They start moving the ball, but unfortunately Donnell's not in the picture. We're actually going to take a quick step back now to Tim Wright because I think Johnny has something to say about him, and then Pete.
Yeah, no, the only thing I wanted to say real briefly for the listeners here is take a look what he is at DraftKings. Tim Wright's $3,000, I think, on DraftKings. And the one thing we wanted to just touch on is if you watched him last year when he played for Tampa Bay, you see one thing's very clear. He's an awesome route runner, okay? He can get open. He knows how to get open, and he's got really, really long arms. And Tom Brady will find him. Yes, Gronk is on the other side. Yes, that might eat into him. But for these type of DraftKings plays like this on $3,000, what a great value. And we know one thing in New England. The hardest thing to do in New England is to be a wide receiver. The easiest thing is to be a tight end. You don't have to learn the offense. I mean, Tom Brady knows that. Look at guys like Amendola. They can't figure out the playbook. Tim Wright steps in, and look at what he's doing. So I think make that point and playing against Buffalo, I like Tim Wright a lot. This in DraftKings 3,000, I think it's great.
Pete?
I'm actually going to make an interesting point since Johnny just went off about how easy it is to play the tight end, and you're right. I think that helps, but what I was going to say is if you watch the game, Wright was lining up a lot at receiver, actually. And he only played, I think, something like low 40s in percentage of snaps total in the game, but on those snaps, he was running routes. They weren't keeping him into block. So you have to keep that in mind when you're considering, okay, we were talking about he was getting a low percentage of snaps comparatively. We're hoping those snaps go up. But on the other hand, the percentage of snaps that he is playing in the game, he's going out. He's running the route. He's not staying into block on a high percentage of those. So his usage, even though he's playing a smaller percentage, the way he's being used at that tight end position is as a receiver. So that's all I was going to say.
Yeah, he's got that, they call it the move tight end position, and that's what Hernandez played, back in the day. So that's what everyone assumed. That's why he came in. A bunch of people drafted him very, very late rounds at the beginning of the season. Now I think those, if they were able to hold on to him until now they're going to start seeing that pay off as he picked up the playbook, started getting back into it, and they realize what type of value they have there. So we'll move on to our next three guys. It's our Eagles quarterback, running back, tight end combo here. Foles, McCoy, and Ertz. We've got Foles at 6,800 in DraftKings, 8,100 in FanDuel. McCoy at 6,000 in DraftKings, 8,000 in FanDuel, and Ertz at 3,800 DraftKings, 5,200 in FanDuel. So Foles and McCoy, you're seeing more value in DraftKings, that's for sure. Ertz is a value in both plays, on both leagues, I think. Don't want to spend all that much time on these because, again, these are three guys that, point, they're practically household names. You know what you're getting when you play them. So, Alex, very, very briefly, I mean, what do you expect out of these guys going up against the G-men?
I just see a very high scoring game. Obviously, we're talking about the Giants, and they're going to be more effective on offense, especially. And with Philly missing Kendricks, that's going to still. I feel like I've talked about this almost every week. While Kendricks is out, that defense is going to struggle, and they're going to give up points, which is going to force the Philly offense to really move the ball quickly. They love doing. Just put up a lot of points either early or even late, but they're going to have to put up a lot of points to win this game. And although LaShawn McCoy has been struggling a lot, for him to be at 6,000 on DraftKings, are you kidding me? He was the #1 running back in all of football last year, had monster games. For 6,000, that is a must-play territory game. The Giants linebackers aren't that great. They're going to give up yardage through the ground. I mean, that's the no-brainer for me out of the three. You obviously know how I feel about Ertz. Other than Kelsey, he's my biggest man crush of the tight end spot. And Foles, if he's on the same page as he has big games, when he's not on the same page with Macklin, it struggles a little bit. So I just see this being a big scoring game. So I would recommend more Shady and Ertz more so than Foles, just because if Prince Amukamara or Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie can shut down Macklin and keep him from catching the ball, that's going to force Foles to struggle a little bit more. But it's also going to allow LaShawn McCoy to have a much bigger day. But at the same time, if Foles has a good day and can't hit Macklin, it's going to open up more lanes for McCoy. So I like McCoy most of the three this week, but I see a high-scoring game, so I see the value in all three of them.
You know what it reminds me of, Alex? I don't know if you remember, but a couple weeks ago, we were talking about Lacy in the same vein. I think he was even the same price, 6,000. And we were just saying, this is crazy. This is way too low. He's a #1 running back, and it's almost a must-play at that price. And you know what happened? Lacy had a couple of nice matchups in a row. He started finding the end zone, and now if Lacy was 6,000, you'd play him as a no-brainer heartbeat play, right? Yeah. So I think you're absolutely.
I think he is 6,000. Wait, hold on. I think he is 6,000 this week. But he had that. The last 2 weeks, he's improved. And right. You're going to see that with McCoy. McCoy isn't this bad. They got Lane. What's his name? Lane Johnson. That's the left tackle's name. It is Lane. Yep. I just want to make sure it's Lane. Okay, his name is Lane. Anyway, they're gonna improve. They're gonna run the ball a little. They're gonna run the ball better. He had 84 yards last week as opposed to he had 17 2 weeks ago. He's improving with Lane Johnson coming. He's gonna run the ball. It's LaShawn McCoy, people. He is a very, very good running back. You have to put him in your lineup if he's gonna cost you the same thing as a mid-tier running back too. It's just a no-brainer in my opinion.
All right, let's leave Shady there then.
I'll talk about him Thursday. Don't worry.
Yeah, we've said our piece. We'll talk about him in terms of if we play him on Thursday, the way that we're gonna work the cast is we're gonna give optimal lineups and say, okay, if you play these people, this is what your lineup could look like. So we're definitely gonna get into that with Shady on Thursday. Moving on to our next value pick here, Ben Roethlisberger going up against that Cleveland defense. Again, this is a replay. He had a very good game against them week 1. He's 6,500 in DraftKings, 7,600 in FanDuel. So, Johnny, do you think Big Ben repeats what he did week 1? Do you think he does better? What's going on here?
Well, yeah, I mean, just when we thought he's back on top, it's like here we go again with Big Ben. But I think he's a solid play against the Browns. The Browns did a pretty good number on the Titans. The thing is, here's the thing, like, he's going to get, the way I look at Ben Roethlisberger is he's going to get at least like 275 yards and a tug meaning a touchdown. But with Antonio Brown, the way he's playing, I really like Roethlisberger this week. And I think, as I look at everything, 6,500 in DraftKings, that's not too bad. FanDuel, 7,600. We have him listed as a stud at a low price, and I think that's exactly what he is.
Okay. Anybody else have anything to add on Big Ben right now?
I'm still mad at him. I'm not talking about him.
I mean, look, you're going to get his points from Brown. You're going to get his points from Miller. He's a good play. Very safe play.
Safe play, right? That's what I was just about to get at. I think this matchup, it's a safe play for a 50-50 league. You probably have better plays at that price for a 50, but he's not a bad play at all. We'll loop into these next three guys. It's surprise, surprise, a team going against the Jags. We're going to look at Tennessee's quarterback, running back, wide receiver. Going to start off with the caveat. We're only really recommending Locker or Kendall Wright if Jake Locker plays. If Clipboard Jesus plays, I would avoid the Titans at all costs.
What did you call him?
Clipboard Jesus, man.
That's great. Okay.
So Jake Locker going at 5,500 in DraftKings, 6,800 in FanDuel. Bishop Sankey, 3,500 in DraftKings, 5,600 in FanDuel. And Kendall Wright, 5,500 DraftKings, 6,700 in FanDuel. So, Pete, outside of what I said on Locker and Kendall Wright, I don't know if you want to touch on them at all or if you'd like to focus on Sankey, but I think some value can be had in Sankey regardless of who starts, but I think the other two severely hinge on whether or not Jake Locker can get out there and throw the ball.
Well, I mean, you can't play Locker if he's not on the field, right? So yes, I would agree. You know, that's a well-made point. Don't play Jake Locker if he's out. But no, I don't know. I mean, I kind of think that my comments here are similar to what I said on the Vikings. You know, there are certain offenses this year which I'm trying to avoid. Now, to be fair, Kendall Wright had a very nice week last week, as did Jake Locker. So why do I want to avoid them? Mainly because I find value in that same price range that I like better. However, they are playing the Jaguars. So that kind of changes things quite a bit. Sankey, I think, is one of those plays who I would avoid in a 50-50. As I recall, he only had 8 rushes last week. That's not the type of player you are looking for safety. However, that is the type of player who you're looking for if you're looking for upside and you're looking for someone in a tournament play who perhaps a low percentage of other players will have in their lineup. I think he could have a very nice week. I also think he could go out and put up 26 rushing yards. So he does catch passes when he's in there. The question is, will he have the playing time, and will they be productive with the time he gets? I could see a scenario where I use Sankey. I don't see many scenarios where I'm using Locker, and in DraftKings, I can see a scenario where I'm using Kendall Wright. He's a very nice PPR play from week to week, and you know what? He's actually scoring touchdowns this year. You know, I think we talked about this in the preseason, if I remember, on one of the podcasts, where last year 92 catches, only 2 touchdowns, and we all said that's not that's not going to happen again. Some regression to the mean will, and that's been happening so far. So I could see a scenario where I would use Wright in a lineup. I could see a scenario where I would use Sankey in like a tournament play as one of those guys, who you're just hoping for a big day from. I would avoid both in 50-50 leagues, and I'm not using Locker. I mean, I understand the appeal, but I'm not. I'm like the negative Nancy on all our fun names, aren't I? Just like, no, to hell with these guys.
Yeah, right? Fine, go ahead. Whatever. We've got
out of here.
Alex,
Give me some
what do you want on Sankey?
Just a quick thing before I get to Sankey with Locker is, we've talked about this in the past. He's a guy that I group in with Vernon Davis, with Percy Harvin, with guys like that, where even if you play him, there is no guarantee if he comes in 100% healthy that he's going to leave the first quarter 100% healthy. So he's somebody that on any given week could go down at any given moment. Those are guys that I do not like taking a chance on, especially in daily when my money is involved. He's just somebody that I don't want to play. So going back to Sankey, me and Mark had a pretty good conversation about Sankey last week. I really like Sankey, and it's another case of why isn't Wisenhunt giving this kid the ball? Sean Green is terrible. As a Jets fan, again, I can tell you how terrible he is. He was my starting running back for a little while, and that was a very, very bad experiment. He's so bad, and they're not getting McCluster involved. I don't understand why they're not going to use their most talented rusher, other than the fact that his footwork isn't doing it. He promised us he would get him involved earlier. He promised him he would give him a larger workload. He wound up running the ball less than he did the following week, less snaps, and then gave more of them back to Sean Green. So obviously a 50-50 play, you can't trust him as long as Wisenhunt is unwilling to give him the ball 15 times a game. But in a tournament play against the Jaguars, if they get up big, they're going to see what the kid can do, and he's going to have some nice points for a very high upside tournament play. But he's just somebody that until I see the words matching the actions from Ken Wisenhunt with Sankey, I'm not touching him in 50-50.
Okay, and really quick before we go to Johnny, I just want to say if anyone out there has any questions, hit me up on Twitter at MNMilano or leave a comment on YouTube. We'll try to get to it. Here's our last beat. Go ahead on Locker.
Yeah, real quick. I mean, this guy slammed his throwing hand into a defender's helmet. Locker, are we even serious with this one? I mean, you're supposed to. All quarterback coaches know this. My uncle's one in the NFL. He's dealt with Jimmy Garoppolo. Here's the deal. You want to squeeze the football on a scale of 1 to 10. You want to squeeze it a 6. Do you think this guy can do that right now? I'm not sure. I think that's a huge hazard. I'm staying away. And as far as Sankey, it's a stubborn coach. It's a talented rookie. And I think the coach has proven a point by just not playing him and kind of preserving him for who knows what. So I just wanted to say to the listeners, stay away. Jaguars are a little tougher on defense. It's not a good daily play. That's all I had to say.
It's a very good point. He pulled the Kevin Brown apparently, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Not your best play, but going against that Jags defense, I think it had to be mentioned. But I think that is it for us for tonight. So for Alex, Johnny, for Pete, what?
Sorry, I was going to do a Q&A for anybody that's watching if you guys want to do that after. I'm going to start in about 10 minutes. I just need to take a piss. Sorry. In about 10 minutes, I'm going to do... Yeah, podcast. Absolutely. Please
don't edit that.
Yeah, but if anybody's interested of those people that are viewing, I would be happy to stay on here for till around 12:30 the latest. Just if you guys have any questions, it doesn't have to be about daily. It can be about anything fantasy related. So I will tweet out that link. Mark, do you mind? I don't know how to put my Twitter handle out there. Can you just do it real quick for those of you still watching?
You've got to do it. If you go to on the left-hand side, if you go to Hangout Toolbox.
Okay. Got it.
And then on the left there, you click on the little dude, and you type in your lower third and turn that on.
Hold on. Hangout Toolbox. A different screen just came up. Hold on.
Mark, thanks, guys. Pete, Alex, I'm gonna go burp some bait.
All right. Are we doing Thursday?
Fun,
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Have a good night, guys.
Oh yeah, Pete, we didn't tell you. The way we're doing it now, instead of doing like we used to do like quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, we're going through everything on Tuesday. And then because we have the optimizer now, we're going to talk about the optimizer, how to use the optimizer to ability. And then we're also going to, the 3 or 4 of us, whoever's on Thursdays, we're going to talk specifically who we want to play and how we're constructing our lineups and kind of give an insight to the listeners, how we personally look at that, because we only talk about values, we don't really talk about how we make our lineups, so that's going to be something that we want to talk about on Thursday so people get another side of how we're making our lineups, why I love Julio Jones so much and why he's in my lineup every week, like things like that.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. I'll probably be a little late on Thursday too, but can't be avoided.
Okay.
Not up.
No worries. All right, I still can't figure this out. All right, Hangout Toolbox, a new screen, a little jump thing pops up.
On the right-hand side, you should get Hangout Toolbox.
It's on the left. I clicked it. It opens up like a pop-out.
Exactly, and then you should see on the top it says Hangout Toolbox, and then you've got like a person, a sound thing, a smiley face.
Do I have to hit accept for? Oh, I have to accept first.
Yes.
Ah, there we go. Okay, so on the right side, person.
Lower third.
My name is there. Enter tagline. Okay.
All right, well, I guess I'll see you guys Thursday then. We good? See you Thursday.
You gotta turn it on. Yep. All right.
Alex, normally I join you for a bit, but tonight I got some stuff to do. So.
No worries. I got nothing to do anyway. Does it work?
There it is.
Do you like it?
Travis Kelce fanboy.
All right,
I'll see you guys Thursday.
Yeah.
All right, take care, Pete.
Bye, Pete. Talk to you on Thursday. All right, so I guess can you leave us open for 5 minutes and people can get my thing, and then I'll start a new Google Hangout? Just so they have my Twitter handle, just in case they need it. I don't know.
I'll add it into the details of the thing, because when I click stop broadcast, it's gonna die, and if I don't click it, I don't know when it dies.
All right, do it. Just end it now. Just put in the comments real quick my Twitter handle. The link will be on my Twitter handle at 11:20.
Sounds good, man.
Talk to you this week. We'll talk more fun stuff on Thursday.
Later, man.
All right, dude. Peace.
For Alex, Johnny, and Pete, I'm Mark. Thanks, guys.